Hi, my name is Jerry Kroth. I'm a psych professor, not an economist, and I'm going to talk to you about a coming crash in the stock market. Now, you may say, I never read the financial pages. What's that have to do with me? Well, the crash of 1929 occurs and it starts to affect the everyday person in 31, 32, 33, 34. The stock market crash is the biggest red flag there is, how in terms of how it will affect your life. So that's why this is important, even if you don't read financial stuff. Okay. Now, you see a lot of stuff on YouTube about the world is coming to an end and a stock market crash is around the corner. I'm not in that school of thought. Okay. I'm coming to you from kind of a different place. So, I promise to get to the issue of the stock market crash in a few minutes, but I need to give you background. Okay, it's a very strange background, which you don't see very often. So, in September of 2020, by that time, this pandemic had hit, the gross national product had fallen. Lots and lots of economists and professors were saying this is the moment for the Great Depression. And I was influenced by 23 of these people, and I made a video called The Coronavirus and Global Economic Collapse, not just the United States. And I finished that, and I don't go into rants. I give a lot of substantive information in my videos. So we quoted 23 professors, economists, pundits. And at the end, I said, I have two daughters, and I do not want this to be true. I don't want my two daughters to have to live through a Great Depression. It takes out a whole generation of people. It affects your life. It affects your future. It's 5, 10 years of disillusionment and depression and broken dreams and broken hearts. It touches almost everybody. So I said, I hope a year from now, I'll come back and say that we were all wrong. Well, guess what? I quoted 23 sources supporting this idea. And they all said, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Okay, one professor said 2020 for sure, 2021 for sure. Easy money, money printing, the pandemic, everybody taking out loans at zero interest rates, unable to pay them back, collapse of the global economy. That's what they said. A year later, they were wrong. It didn't happen. Okay? Now, I was raised as a social scientist, meaning if you have a hypothesis, the data confirms it or it disconfirms it. And then if it's disconfirmed, you don't cry, you go on to the next thing and you have another hypothesis. But when you're in the media and saying the world is coming to an end, these people don't apologize. Well, I came back a year later and I made a video called The Great Depression That Never Happened. And I said, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and so were all these other 23 people. I don't think I can name a single one who said, gosh, I made a prediction and it was incorrect. Can't name a single one. Maybe there's someone out there, but I didn't see it. I did. I apologized for them. And I quit. Okay? And I said, okay, that's enough. But then time wore on, and here we are in the summer of 2022, 2 years later. And there's Jerry Kroth ready to cry wolf again. Okay? Because unfortunately, I came across some people that I really respect who came out and said again that this is serious and this is going to be worse than 2008. And I debated with myself, do you want to do this again? And I said, yes. So I'm only going to cite 3 people this time, not 23 people. Nouriel Roubini is a professor of economics at New York University. He's smart. He speaks with an accent. He speaks very fast. I hardly understand him. But he predicted the 2008 crash, and they gave him a nickname, Dr. Doom. I don't think he likes that. So he just wrote a book. I heard him talk. He said, now I don't know if YouTube's going to let me show you this clip. So here's what he said, and then I'll show you the clip. He said, The idea that this recession we are entering in right now is short and shallow is totally delusional. Okay? This is going to be worse than the 2008 financial crisis. Well, I took note when he said that. That was just a couple of weeks ago. Okay? So here's Rubini. I hope you can understand him. He goes pretty fast.
What is the old world view of this recession, this slowdown that we're in, where maybe it's a mega threat, as your new book is called? This new world, it's all going to be fine, is off the mark.
Well, now the consensus view is becoming that hard landing is likely as opposed to a soft landing. But now people say, well, be short, shallow, mild, plain vanilla, garden variety. I beg to disagree. I think there are many reasons why we're going to have a severe recession and a severe debt and financial crisis. Debt ratios are at historically high, 420% of GDP in advanced economies and rising. Lots of zombie corporation, household, government, financial institutions were bailed out during COVID. This time around, we're tightening monetary policy. During the 70s, we had stagflation, but debt ratios were low. This time we have stagflationary negative aggregate supply shocks,
right,
and debt ratios that are historically high. And in previous recession, like the last two, with massive monetary and fiscal easing, this time around, we're going to go in recession by tightening monetary policy with no fiscal space. So the idea this is going to be short and shallow, it's totally delusional.
He goes pretty fast. He wrote a book called Mega Threats. I want to read it, but it's not out. It won't be out until October. But he's looking at not just interest rates or recession. He's looking at climate change affecting agriculture, shortages, Ukraine, sanctions, prices of oil and gas going up because of sanctions and this war, starvation in the Middle East. All these threats are combining to make a perfect storm, which is going to happen now. Okay, so I paid attention to that, but I wasn't convinced that it was time to go out and cry wolf again. There's another guy I have a lot of respect for. His name is Carter Worth. He appears on mainstream TV all the time. He's on CNBC at least once a week. He's a chart master. He looks at charts and cycles and stuff. I've never, ever seen him appear on one of these YouTube channels, that sells gold and silver and says the world is coming to an end. Well, all of a sudden, I see him appearing on Stansberry Research, which is one of those channels, but is a little more reputable. And I've never, ever seen him appear. And all of a sudden, he's not only talking about his new discovery, but he's much more enthusiastic than I've ever seen him on mainstream TV. And he's talking about a cycle.
Okay, now watch this. They're identical in magnitude. Not like sort of like one was up 600, one was up 7. Identical. Each up 620%.
Okay, he's all excited. Now I'm going to explain what he just said slower, okay, so that we can all understand it. He's looking at cycles, and he said, take the very lowest moment of the market when the 1987 crash happened, down there in your lower left, and go all the way to the top. And how much is that? Well, that took 12 years, and it went up 617%. Okay? So then his next thing is, well, let's take the bottom. Now look at the middle. The bottom at the 2008 financial crisis. Let's say you bought at the bottom and you sold at the top, which is this January 4th. Well, that is also 12 years and 620%. Two cycles almost identical in size and in time. It goes up 621% in 12 years, goes up 617% in another 12 years. Okay? Wonderful discovery. No wonder he's enthusiastic. But look in the middle. In the middle is a downdraft that goes down a total of 57%. And it takes 8 years. All right. Now, pay close attention. The first downdraft occurs here, and it goes down about 45 to 50%. Okay? And now take a look at this. This is where we are today. Do you see the connection? Do you see the parallel? We have finished a 12-year bull market that went up 621%, ended in January. We're headed down, 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 down. We're 6 or 7 months into that decline. We're in a recession. But Carter Worth says, if you look at history, this is going to last up to 8 years, and it's going lower. Okay, that impressed me. Do you understand that? So conclusion from that is that seems to mean that we might be headed for a 57% decline, which is worse than 2008. He didn't say that. His chart says that. All right. There's a third source who I also have respect for, Michael Burry. He wrote The Big Short. He was looking at the market in 2008, said this housing bubble is going to burst, and I'm selling short. Now, I've never done that, but if you sell short on the market, you can really lose everything. It's extremely risky to do that. He sold the market short. The housing market collapsed. He made a fortune, and they made a movie of his book, The Big Short. And Brad Pitt and Brian Gosling starred in that movie. I don't know if you saw it. Well, he's back. And he said this July, there is another market plunge coming. So I do pay attention to Michael Burry. Okay. And he said, at least someone says he said, we're months away. I wanted to get a quote from him. So this is a quote from Michael Burry himself. This is the mother of all crashes. Losses will approach the size of countries. Okay. So 3 people who are saying that. Now I'm going to throw in a couple people I don't pay a lot of attention to, but I'm putting them in because they are extremists. Harry Dent has been predicting a market crash for many, many years, and he's been wrong. And he always says, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, to rationalize the fact that his prediction was incorrect. Well, here he is again, right now, predicting.
Okay, something like that. And then we would set up for another 5.5 month wave down minimum, and as strong or stronger than this first wave. And that's going to take us into deep territory. So folks, for the doubters or people say, well, I took some off the table, and then sell into this bounce. This is the last chance. Then whatever reservations you have left should be pretty much gone. We're into the greatest crash of our lifetimes. And remember my downside targets: 86% on the S&P 500, 92% on the NASDAQ.
Okay, so Carter Worth didn't present his data on CNBC as far as I can tell. CNBC kind of has a vested interest in saying, oh, the market's going down. What do you want to buy now? They don't want you to sell everything. There are very few voices that say sell everything. Harry Dent is one of them. This guy, Gerald Salent, writes about forecasting. I actually bumped into him by accident in Kingston, New York. Had my picture taken with him. And I wrote to him and I said, what is your proof? This is what he wrote. He said, I believe we're headed into the worst economic crisis of our lifetime. Okay, here's...
Sure. And it's hell on earth.
Okay, he's appearing on the same show that Carter Worth appeared on. Well, I want to tell you that I'm ignoring all of these doomsday sayers. This guy, Robert Kiyosaki, see him at the top. The biggest crash in world history hits this October. Well, that was last October that he said that. Okay? He didn't apologize for making a mistake. Every month he's coming back. Worst crash in history is coming. It's coming. That's almost a year ago. Okay? And these people are always there. They're always telling us the world is coming to an end. And this time I'm ignoring them. Let's take a look at what we have come up with so far. All right. This is the stock market. I've graphed it. That's the 2008 crash, 45% down. And this is where we are now. Okay? As I speak, 22% down. Now, let's take another look. And let's put in our 3 people. There's Rubini, There's Michael Burry, and here is Carter Worth. He didn't say we'll go down 50%. His chart does. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But you can see that these people are saying we are going to have a crash that's worse than 2008. Now let's put in Harry Dent just for fun, okay? And this is where 2008, this is where we are now. This is Rubini, this is Burry, this is Carter Worth, and there is Harry Dent. And he's taking us right into a Great Depression. All right, now, if we ask ourselves intelligently, what's life like if this is worse than 2008? Well, in 2008, household wealth fell $11 trillion. Retirement funds, do you have a 401k? They lost 20% of their value. 3 million people lost their homes to foreclosure. Home prices declined 40%. Unemployment rose to 11%, and 2.5 million people lost their jobs. It was pretty high. 4 years later, this is important, 4 years later, only 40% had recovered their losses in their retirement funds. So if you're saying, I can ride this out, I don't have to worry about Jerry's video, maybe you can. But remember this statistic that those retirement funds come down 45%, 50, 57%. And after 4 years, only 40% of the people got back to where they were. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means I'm not a financial analyst, but from my reading, it seems like getting out of the market would be a very good idea. Assume your income is going to drop. Try to protect your home from foreclosure if you own one. Take your 401k and put it into safer places than it is now. Pay off as much debt as you can, and prepare to hunker down. Carter Worth's chart says 8 years. Okay, prepare to hunker down for 4 years. I think that's reasonable. Develop a pantry. Really? Yes. Now, maybe we're worrying too much, huh? Maybe this is another scare thing that's going on. Maybe we're influenced too much by fearful stimuli. Most of the things you worry about never happen. What happens when you worry too much? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should chill out and say, man, forget it. It's not a big deal. It's going to be okay. Oh, not a bad idea. Let's think about that. There are people who are saying it's not going to be that bad. Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, head of the Treasury. It's not going to be that bad. Here's an economist, Jeremy Siegel from Wharton School of Economics, who says, I don't see this as a terrible thing. This guy is a stock trader who says the market's going to be up 15% by the end of the year. Stay invested. Well, let's make a matrix. Risk reward. What's the most rational decision for me? Okay, watch this. We're going to make a matrix. It's two options here. Things are going to be worse than 2008, or it's going to be very mild. Now you decide, I'm going to get prepared. I saw Jerry's video or somebody else's video, and I've decided to get prepared, and it's worse than 2008. Well, good for you. You protected your assets. They're not going to foreclose on your house. You had a little cash stored up, and you survived. Good for you. Well, what if you prepared and it's a mild recession? Well, you worried for no reason. You're a fool. You should never have watched this video. You didn't lose anything, but the market's going to go up 15%. You lost out on that. You lost out on some opportunities. Well, what happens if you didn't prepare and it's worse than 2008? Well, what happens then is you might have lost your job. You can't pay your debts. You might have lost your house to foreclosure. You might have had your car repossessed. You were completely unprepared. Remember, 56% of Americans, this is January, of 2022. 56%, a majority of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense. Is that you? Well, that means you're not prepared for what's going to come, okay? And you're going to be victimized by that. And what happens if you didn't prepare and it's a mild recession? Well, you ended up pretty much the same as you are now. Everything's kind of cool, okay? Now, what does that mean? This is bad. These are the two boxes to pay attention to. If you didn't prepare and it's going to be worse than 2008, your risk that you're taking is huge. You're risking everything. And if it's very mild and you got prepared, well, you wasted your time getting prepared. That's all. But you didn't lose anything. You missed out on some opportunities. So the best decision, the most rational decision, in my view, is be prepared. Okay, get ready. Jamie Dimon is the CEO of the largest bank in the United States. He doesn't go around saying the world's coming to an end. Okay, he doesn't try to go and start a panic. He sits on a company that's worth more than $3 trillion in assets. And I don't know if they're going to let me show this video. It'll follow. But he's talking about what's coming. And he says, a hurricane is coming. And it's coming our way. You got to brace yourself. He's the CEO of America's largest bank. Here is the video. I hope YouTube allows it.
So I'm going to change the storm clouds out there because I'm an optimist. You know, I said there's storm clouds, they're big storm clouds. It's a hurricane. Right now it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. You know, everyone thinks the Fed can handle this. That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy. Or you better brace yourself.
You got to brace yourself. Okay. If Jamie Dimon says you got to brace yourself, maybe you got to listen. So it seems like it's a rational decision to be prepared and to get ready and to brace yourself. Now we got to figure out how to do that. But let's ask, when is this hurricane going to hit anyway? Does anybody know? Michael Burry says it could be any moment. Whoa. Rubini doesn't say, I can't get it out of his book, can't buy his book yet, but the average bear market, this is an extrapolation from what Rubini says. The average bear market lasts 289 days, and we are already 210 days into this bear market, which gives us about 2.5 months before this hurricane might be hitting. Now, when I look at Carter Worth's chart, it shows that this downdraft, the first downdraft, happens over 2 years. Well, we've already in, 8-9 months into it, so it leaves us 16 months. So no one quite knows when it's going to hit, but soon. So how do we brace ourselves? What are we supposed to do to get ready? Well, I'm not a financial planner. You need to do your research. There are 7 ways you can financially prepare for a recession. 5 ways to prepare, how to prepare. So you get started and you start looking at those things. To me, you need to speak to a financial planner and say, hey, I need to put my retirement funds in the safest assets possible. Okay, please do that. Looks like gold and silver as good. Short-term treasuries like T-bills are good. Money market funds are good. And everything else looks bad. I don't know, crypto looks bad. Everything looks bad. Cutting your debts, postponing your purchases, canceling your vacations, paying off your loans, selling stuff on eBay, raising cash, preparing for inflation and shortages. We're already experiencing some of that. Freeze-dried foods and developing a pantry and putting a little money aside to help the poor, because you're going to have a lot more poor people if this happens who are struggling to find food. Here's a guy who has 6 children, and he made a video on his pantry. I think it's a good video. I'm going to show it to you.
so forth. We have a large family. We have 8 people. My wife and our 6 kids. We have a lot of people in our home, so we have to have quite a bit stored up. So let's go over and take a look. All right. Well, we'll start with our canning. What we did, we canned about 200 jars this year. We did some pears, grape juice, applesauce, salsa, some cubed tomatoes, some freschetta, and we also gave a bunch away. But we have a couple freezers here that are pretty full, and we'll go over to this one, kind of open it up so you can kind of see. We have like lots of meats and things that we store in here. So these freezers are pretty full. So on this shelf here, we have a lot of canned food. We have stock, broths, sauces, ketchup, mustard, ranch, beans, things like that you would keep on hand. But we have also a lot of canned fruit. So if you see on the top, we have a couple big jars of sliced peaches, and then we have a lot of cans of peaches and other foods there. We also have a lot of tuna fish and shredded chicken and things like that, yeast, syrup, olive oil, all that kind of stuff that you would need.
All right, so learning about emergency food storage, studying that, and getting some degree of preparation. Now, some people want to prepare for a year. I have made my own little pantry, and I actually bought some freeze-dried food, and mine is a little bigger than that, but I think I could go for 3 months. Okay? So what is the recommendation? What is the rational recommendation for bracing yourself? Okay. First, and this is just me thinking out loud, okay, and how to decide that. A bank will not foreclose on your house until you have missed 4 months in payments. So isn't it logical to say I should have at least 4 months of house payments set aside for a rainy day in case that rainy day comes? Another, to prevent foreclosures. Another one is your car will not be repossessed unless you have missed 3 payments. So isn't it rational to say I should have 3 months of car payments set aside just in case there's a hurricane, which is supposed to be coming? All right, so then that gives you some idea of what you're supposed to do. I think it's rational to say, can you survive for 6 months? Now, some people would argue, no, you need to survive for 2 years or 4 years or 8 years. But I think a reasonable statement compared, if we're talking about 56% of Americans who can't handle $1,000 expense, then to say you need to get ready for 6 months of hardship, that would be a major challenge. But I think that to me is a modest, rational response to all of this. Okay? So that's Rubini's book, and I'm anxious to read it. It doesn't come out until October, and he's talking about multiple factors, not just economic factors. I also wrote a book about 2020. It's not predicting this market crash, but it is talking about the prospect of collapse of societies. For example, a historian and an anthropologist said there are 9 correlates to societal collapse. Some are economic, some are not. And I asked in this book, how is America scoring on that scorecard? For example, the number of children raised in a family with only one parent, single parent family. 42% in America, 1% in China. Big discrepancy. Healthy society, unhealthy society. So that's what that book is about. And that is the context in which this lecture happened. So I'd recommend that too. Available on Amazon. Contact me at this place. And I'm going to make a promise to you too. And that is, I hope none of this is true. And I'm coming back in a year and saying, I'm so glad that I was wrong. And I'm so glad that Rubini was wrong. And Carter Worth was wrong. And Gerald Salent was wrong. And Harry Dent, who's always wrong, is wrong. Okay, I hope to be back in a year and say that. But in the meantime, I hope you will take this as a serious statement. Okay, thank you very much for watching.